Hi friends, it's Sarah from rufflesandrainboots.com, and today we're using the Dollar Tree forms to make some adorable gnome tree toppers. We're going to make two styles, this guy who's an all-in-one complete, and this guy who you can remove the hat and tuck the nose and hat inside for storage. If you'd like to make them, just boop and boop. Stick around. As always, please give this video a like so I know you're here crafting with me. It also helps me with this YouTube algorithm. So here is the full view of this guy. You can see his hat comes back to a point, uneven because of me. And then this guy who his hat actually comes off and can be tucked inside. Isn't that handy? All right, so to get started, we're going to use any of the tree forms available at the Dollar Tree or Dollar General. We're just going to make sure we can remove whatever's on them. So I'm going to be using these two tinsel trees, anything for a nose, wood rounds, dowel caps, or even fleece with a little bit of polyfill. I'll show you that method. I'm going to be using Mongolian fir in a 3-inch pile and an X-Acto knife and cutting mat. For my beards, I'm going to use a detail glue gun, but you can use a full size, and then 2 different colors of fleece, not felt. And the reason is because fleece is way more forgiving and a little more durable than felt. First step, we're going to remove the tinsel. Now I did this 2 ways. I took the time to take wire cutters and remove every single one of these little nubbies, which I'm not going to make you watch, but I did both methods of removing all of them and leaving them on. Leave them on, there's no difference. But I will tell you, I did this where I tried to cover it with just the fleece. It did not work. No matter how many layers, it still showed. So while you're at the Dollar Tree, go ahead and grab some poster board. You can get 2 for $1, and then you're just going to roll it over a little bit so it has a nice curve, and then glue it onto your tree form. We just need it to cover the middle and then have a little bit at the top we can form into a nice stiff piece that our fleece will adhere to. All right, so I'm not going to make you watch all this, but I am going to show you, I'm putting a generous portion of hot glue both on the paper and on the form. And then I'm just gonna cut this down. It doesn't have to be pretty, it's literally gonna be covered. But the one thing I will say is that don't leave an overhang on the paper on the bottom. Be sure to actually trim that right up to the edge so that we don't have any creasing or crumbling over time. All right, so I'm gonna remove my mess here, but I wanna make sure we adhere this poster board right around this edge. So I am gonna show you on the next one. I broke the form. I'm just so strong. That's not true. But it doesn't matter what it looks like. Again, we're just going to cover the form with this fleece. So I'm using about a ½ yard of fleece. I have no idea how much this is. Doesn't take a ton amount. But you do need sort of a square, and that's because we're going to just glue it directly onto this cone by rolling it on. And then you're going to cut it so we have a little bit extra at the bottom. I would say 2 inches will be more than enough. Try and make your seam straight, otherwise you have to cut it later like I do right here and try and make it straight. Yeah, you can only do the bottom if you would like, if you're attaching the hat. But I get asked a lot about how to cover a cone, so I'm going to share this video with those people who email me. So I made sure that tip was secure and pretty solid, and then I'm moving to the bottom, which I'm just going to add hot glue to the fleece, and then that way when I press it up under, it will adhere both to the form and to the poster board. I do that all the way around. There's no need to cut or split the fabric at the bottom, and I thought if you did that, it would actually wear out faster over time because the pieces of tree will adhere to those and yank those off. For the beard on this red one, I am actually covering the seam, so I'm going to cut and show you 2 different beards. Always with faux fur, you're going to put it face down, you're going to make sure the pile is all pointing down, and then you're going to size your beard. I'm using a nearly wraparound beard for this guy, just cut in a simple rectangle. Do keep in mind that we want the fur to be at the edge of the bottom and not hanging over the bottom, just for making it look nice and finished. And actually, you don't have to do that. Don't listen to me. I'm just making suggestions. All right, so as you can imagine, we're just going to glue this on with a very, very generous amount of hot glue. Yeah, very generous. Now for the hat, easiest hat ever. So you need to decide where your hat is going to be placed upon your gnome and then wrap your fabric around it. That's it. add about 2 inches, maybe 1.5 inches on the short end to this, and make a cut in your fabric exactly where that was, and then make a note of how high you need to cut your fabric. You can see I have a little extra piece up there. Doesn't matter, we're gonna not use that, but I'm gonna make sure I understand how high and how wide to cut, and then I'm just gonna cut it. Now let me know if you like this style of tutorial down below, which is mixing the sped up stuff that's repetitive with the real-time version. I'm trying to come to a happy medium to please everybody. All right, so for this, you're going to fold over your rectangle, have a 2-inch rise, and then cut it all the way up, leaving about 1/4 inch so you have a nice flat bit at the top we can roll into a cone. We're going to put this just off center. It doesn't have to be too far off center, so we're just going to make sure that it lines up at the top into a nice pretty cone right here, because that's where we're starting. We're going to glue the hat directly to the piece we covered, making sure we wrap it all the way around and it comes to a nice pretty point. If yours doesn't come to a point, put a bell up there or some holly or something. You can hide it. All right, so I split the fur to its fabric backing and add my 1-inch round bead with hot glue. So this is actually a 1-inch wood round, not bead, so it has no holes. You can use beads, you can use pom-poms, you can use ping pong balls, anything you'd like. I'm gonna show you another version for a nose in just a second. But I'm going to glue on this nose right on the brim of the hat first before I start tugging. Make sure that's dry because we don't want it to move. For the bottom part of the cone we wrapped at the top, we're going to add glue directly to the fleece. Make sure you don't get it in the beard material. And then you're just going to pull that so it hits the back of our gnome in the center. And then roll this around, making sure that this one is a little bit neat, making sure that your edge is, you know, mostly vertical. I ended up tugging mine a bit too hard, so I'll show you if you do that. Don't worry. If you miscut, don't worry. We can still make it work. All right. So all the way down, making sure it's secure before moving on. So you see here, I pulled way too hard, so mine's legit tight. And what I'm gonna do is just glue it till it matches up on this point here. And then I'm gonna cut the rest off till it comes to a point. I didn't get it exact, but I was happy with it. Seeing as how this is like a 10 to 12 minute craft, so. All right, so you can see right there is a little overlap. I'm just gonna glue the hat all the way down around the back, and then on the front, whoo, it needs a brushing. All right, on the front, lift up the hat and secure this right. If you can get it to the body, that's better than securing it to the fur, but whichever works for you. And then I just added a little bit of pine decoration, a pine cone, and a little sprig of berries. Give him a little zhuzhing, and this guy is done. I like him. He fits on both of my trees, meaning the big one and the little needle trees, so that's good. For the second one, I'm just gonna show the differences that I did. Number one, I left all those nubs on. Number two, I did actually make sure I cut off anything that was extending from the bottom, wrapped it, made sure I glued it, but look what I found. I broke it. So it's a lot skinnier than my other one. Again, it fits on both of the big tree and the little needle one. So I did end up cutting that piece off so it wouldn't snag anything, and just made sure I secured it down really well with hot glue before I did the exact same stuff we did before. We wrapped the cone, securing it to the poster board, making sure we get this top edge in. So because this one, I actually left a little extra material on this one. I don't know if it was a good idea or a bad idea, but I figured it was gonna be a great stopping point for the hat. So you can see I make it into a little cone shape, but instead of cutting it all off, I'm gonna glue on a little bit extra nubby thing at the top instead of cutting that off. And I'm gonna glue it down so it's flat. And then for the back edge, or the back seam, I just folded over about 1/4 to 1/2 inch and then made that pretty, because again, this one is the removable hat one, and I don't know, I just thought it was a better idea. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do any of this. This is just suggestions. All right, so we're gonna secure that all the way down the back and then do the bottom like we did before, adding a generous portion of hot glue directly to the fleece so that it will adhere both to the form and the poster board. For this hat, it's going to be even easier. We're just going to make sure we have a nice generous width where our nose is going to be over our body, and then we're going to identify the top. Now on this one, you're going to cut sort of a rounded how do I say that? It's a rounded triangle. So you're also going to cut a rise. So you can see here, I'm just cutting the other strip of the fabric here and then over. So you see that's a very generous rise. And what this will do is it will allow for a nice slouch look. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut it all the way up. And I end up fixing my hack job that I did here, but I'm going to, on the wrong side of the fabric, flip up and give this a brim. Number one, because I want the nose to adhere really well. Number two, because I accidentally used the selvage edge with the holes in it. So, all right, so I trimmed up and made it nice and pretty, which you don't have to do. Put right sides together and glued that top seam. Now, before I turned it inside right or right sides out, I did yank on it and make sure nothing would bust through. Slip it on the body, and here I just cut a sort of rounded off tall V. For my beard, it's a much smaller beard, but I'm going to tuck it up right up under the hat after I've get an idea where I want it. And then I'm just going to glue that down, making sure I don't get any glue in the fur. For a nose, I'm just going to take a rectangle, fold it in quarters, and then cut an oval. Look, it's not even. But it works, okay? It's gonna end up cute. All right, so I'm taking unknotted embroidery thread, a needle, and then I'm starting on the outside of the nose, about a 1/2 inch away from the edge. I'm going to do a running stitch all the way around. You can gather this with fleece and a twine wrap or even an elastic that you secure with twine. But I just find that you can control the scrunch a lot better if you sew it like this. And I think it's a really cute, wide, boopable, and honkable nose. All right, so I'm not gonna make you watch me do this like at this speed because I sew at snail's pace. So once you go all the way around, you're going to make sure you exit at the same place or on the same side you started. Right next to the stitch you started, you're gonna fill it with a little bit of polyfill and then yank. And when you yank them, it produces a nice little oval. Knot it off. I'm going to add a little blush to mine because I'm using sort of a cream color. I don't have a light pink or peach bit of fleece. So I'm just going to add a little blush-a-rooney here. And then I'm gonna cut my strings off. And I'm gonna glue this directly to the bottom of the hat. Now, can you sew it? Absolutely. Whatever thread match the hat and sew it. Or sew it on with whatever you use for the nose and then add a trim. But basically, this is going to protect the two things that I feel are going to get the most dirty, and that is the white fabric and the boopable nose. And then to display it, you just slip it on, making sure the nose is in place, and then tucking down, doing a much better job of matching up the seams than I did, just making sure that nose is tucked into place. And then for decorations for that guy, I just add a little holly and berries. But let me know down in the comments, what do you think of these? Will you make these? I like these for shelf sitters as well as tree toppers. Let me know down below which one is your favorite. Thank you for being here. As always, I sincerely appreciate it. Please like and subscribe for more crafty fun.